Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce the release of my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. If you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level in 2021, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Cassandra Bodzak here with me on the show. Cassandra is the author of the book Eat with Intention and the soon-to-be-released book Manifesting Through Meditation, as well as the host of the Divine Downloads podcast, which I recently had the privilege of being a guest on. Super excited to have you here. Hello, Cassandra. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. And actually, that book has been released.
Oh, it has.
So it's available.
Oh, my bad. I thought it was forthcoming for some reason. But that goes to show you that I should have already read it and memorized it so that I could recount it back to you. And
okay.
I might be getting fired.
This episode has been months in the making. So probably when we first talked, it was forthcoming.
That's why. That's what it was. I looked back because we talked months and months ago. And when did it come out?
It came out September 21st.
Yeah, that's why. That's why I'm confused. I've got good reason to be befuddled. All right, I want to start with the opening cliche question I have for everyone, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Oh, wow. These are the kind of questions that they give you the most anxiety.
Well, we got to start with the high anxiety. I mean, I've already gotten your book wrong. Let's keep it going.
It's only fair. I would say that, if I was feeling really uninhibited, that my passion is, connecting to the divine essence within me and exploring the quantum field. And so much of everything I do in my life, being an author and also, being a spiritual mentor and even the podcast and everything I do really comes outside of that, main line of inquiry that I have, and that passion, the curious passion that I have to explore those realms or experiences or knowings.
I like it. Yeah. Well, you might have hit the 11th or 12th floor, but we'll let you slide.
She probably was running out of the elevator.
Yeah.
He was like, "Great."
It depends,
Yeah.
I would say if she ended up in the elevator with you to begin with.
Yeah, maybe she was meant to.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's some level, even if it's like turning her nose up, out of, 8 billion people on the planet now, she ended up in that elevator with you. There's probably a reason she's meant to.
That's true.
Hear
That's
that.
very true.
So if you would, tell a little bit about your story, because one of the things, you were on a ABC show as well, right? That I did not mention when we opened up. So I'd love to just hear a little bit about, that journey, just your background in general, whatever you think is relevant to share.
Yeah. So I was on a show on ABC called The Taste with Dane, Ludo Lefebvre, Nigel Lawson, Marcus Samuelson, for anybody that's a foodie out there. But my journey, I guess, started a bit before that. Was, I think, when I was in college, I started a blog to handle my own struggles with my body and with eating. I had a lot of food allergies, and I had a really frustrated relationship with my body in general. And that was kind of the early onset of like the pre-tremors of my awakening,
Mm.
where I started connecting to my body and talking to my body. And the blog became a passion project of just like an exploration into this new relationship I was trying to have with my body and food. And it was something that kind of, just was a passion project of mine. And then in 2012, when I really cracked open, it was through my brother getting diagnosed with a terminal autoimmune condition.
Wow.
And when he got diagnosed, that's when I just shattered like China, and it cracked me open so much, and put me in such a vulnerable, kind of devastated place that I'd never experienced before, that I started talking to God. And that, I mean, I was raised Catholic, but I wasn't like in the habit of talking to God all the time or anything like that.
Right.
And all of a sudden I was like, God, I don't know if you're there, but I need someone to talk to. And I've got some questions for you. And then that led me, I kept on being directed to meditate whenever I would have those little yelling sessions with God, I would say. And I started meditating, and don't worry, all of this is going to lead to how I ended up on TV. I started the smorgasbord of meditation. So I started different things on YouTube. I was living in New York at the time, went to like a Buddhist meditation center in Brooklyn. I did Kundalini meditation. I did Vedic meditation. I tried all these different things, just jumped in head first as my lifeboat at the time to kind of withstand what was coming up. And as I was on this journey of meditation and just like consuming as much meditation as possible, and exploring all these things that were opening up to me, these new truths and these new visions and things that were coming through, I also naturally started just following my fun more and just following the things that brought me joy. So I started putting more and more energy into that little food blog I had. And that was one of these things that I just asked myself during the day, like, well, what's like the next little thing I can do that's going to like bring me a little joy? And so often it would be like, let me just get in the kitchen and make this recipe and like take some pictures and post it. And at this point, I really wasn't doing it for anyone else. I didn't think anyone other than my few friends in college paid any attention to what I was doing on this blog.
Right.
And I had no idea how to market anything like that, or it was, completely unsavvy. But I just knew that it made me happy in the doing of it. And that's all I cared about. And that joy at that point in my life was, gold. And so I kept on doing that. And little by little, all of a sudden, people started emailing me that I didn't know and asking me if I could help them with their food stuff. And asking me if I was a coach. And I was like, I don't know, what is a coach? And so I started researching, I ended up going to IIN. I started researching like how would I coach, and thinking about, what that would look like. I did some testings, and I just really was playing and experimenting at that point with things that felt good. And one of the things I loved doing was doing these really awful YouTube videos that were like, it was like a bunch of cookbooks stacked on top of each other with my little laptop in like a super yellow lit, tiny Manhattan kitchen where I didn't know how to do any editing. So all of the like steps were all laid out behind me on my small little countertops. And I would hold the bowl in front of me and just keep adding things from behind. It was like, they were insane, but it took me like 3 hours to do. It was like a whole project. It made me so happy. I was laughing the whole time. It was a complete shit show. And I would post them and I'd be like, I don't know, whatever. Somebody out there is going to enjoy this, and maybe they'll make some gluten-free cupcakes and thank me. And I got a call from a producer at ABC. and they were like, we love your YouTube videos.
We love really poorly edited videos.
I literally said, I was like, I think you have the wrong person.
Did you say that?
I did. I literally said that. I was like, I don't think you're watching you must have me confused. And he was like, no, you're Cassandra, right? You do like the vegan, gluten-free cooking videos. And I was like, yeah, my videos aren't good. And she was like, no, your videos are horrible, but you're wonderful. And, like your personality and like all, is great. And we really like you. And so then the rest was kind of history. It was like this very divine, like that was one of those moments in my life where I felt like literally like the divine, like reached down, like put the, like grabbed me and just moved me along, and guided me in such a really strong way that I can't logically explain how so much of what happened in that arena happened, other than the fact that I was meditating all the time. I was following what lights me up. I was doing those things from a place of such deep surrender, because I wasn't logistically trying to get anything. I was just trying to be happy and take care of my family. And that required me being, mentally sane enough and stable enough to be able to be a productive, helper for someone that I loved. Anyway, and so one thing led to another. I ended up on this show. It was great. I ended up doing my first book, Eat with Intention, after that, which is another, wonderful story where after, I was on the show, I went to a yoga meditation festival thing. And I was thinking about, how I was like forwardly this very like food focused person. But anybody that knew me knew that I was actually like the president of the meditation club, right. And I felt like I had this whole persona that was being hidden by like, oh, I just like vegan cupcakes. And I was like, oh no, like if you hang out with me, that's not like what you're getting. And, and so in the meditation, I downloaded the what's in Eat with Intention, which Eat with Intention is really using your body's wisdom as a way to connect to the divine. And also every recipe has a corresponding meditation and a mantra with it. So it like got to like encapsulate all aspects of that journey so that I wasn't just giving someone a recipe book in the conventional sense. I was giving them a recipe book in a much broader life sense.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it all began.
I just saw a quote just came across my feed yesterday, and I went and found it again right before this, and it was Osho saying, people think that they are happy, they eat. People think that when they are happy, they eat too much, but that is absolute nonsense. A happy person feels so fulfilled that he feels no space inside. An unhappy man goes on throwing food onto himself. And so I just, eating with intention, right? I mean, it's something that everyone has done. I mean, I've definitely caught myself as someone who can really talk fast and move fast and kind of be like amped up a lot. And then, eating like I'll be done and everyone else has just started, And so I think this is I really should have memorized your book, because I think this is one for me that I really have to be cognizant of. It's like, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And it's like a reflection in some way. It's like, what is the big hurry? Why, and then I'll sit down with someone who's really mindful about their eating. I'm like, oh yeah. So it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a really cool idea too, that you put a meditation and, how you tied all the things together.
Yeah, well, I knew I was already on that path. Now my world is, primarily meditation and focusing on the spiritual journey. And as you probably have also experienced, perhaps on your journey, is sometimes that as someone that's either like an author or speaking about stuff, is that usually when you've like crystallized what you're talking about, there's a part of you that's already kind of moving on to the next thing that you're learning and that you're diving into. And so it was kind of in those like that really interesting in-between phase where I had already said, okay, I'm not the kind of person that I'm not the girl I was even 2 years ago that would have just written the recipe book, I now need it to be more, more, because I feel like I I don't want to sell not cupcakes, or it's plant-based, healthy, delicious, beautiful food, but I don't want to sell that as the ticket to happiness, right? Because the meditation and the spiritual relationship, that's really the key that turned the door. It's just, and what you said is so true. And it goes so bigger than beyond food, right? With the Osho quote, where it's like, when we're happy, it's almost like when we're happy, then it's like we need less, right? When we show up happy to the table, then it's like, we need less money. We need less food. We need less of all the like outside accoutrements or whatnot, because we feel so full. And it's often when we feel so empty, and then we look outside of ourselves, whether it's to the food or, and speaking of this, because we just had the Taurus full moon eclipse. Taurus is a very like sensual, sensory sign that's like very much connected to like food and sex, sensuality, sexuality, like things we experience with our senses, types of things, which are all things we can use to numb us at times, right? Or we use that, let's say, to fill the happiness void that it was not designed to fill.
Right. Yeah, it kind of reminds me when you were saying like, look, I wasn't doing it to achieve any particular aim. I was just, finding some happiness and peace in the action. And I think that's really interesting when how often it is that sort of thing. I mean, even with this podcast, it was one of the first things in my life I ever did without like, as a serial entrepreneur my whole life, it was always like, sort of all this plan of what I would accomplish or do or where it would go. And I had none of that with this. Surprisingly, if in retrospect, it was just like, oh, I just want to do something that makes me happy and that feels good and maybe it'll benefit someone else. And it's so often when you get into that state, that's where the magic comes in. Or I was talking to an ex-business partner just yesterday about 3 years ago. He was like flat broke, down and out, and had this moment, like really had a really hard time of complete surrender and moving into a state of gratitude and just moving into a state of gratitude and complete surrender, quitting the chase in some way. And the way he put it is like, it's kind of like, just felt like grace, and now it's like, that was 3 Novembers ago, and, he's worth tens of millions of dollars, like in that time, from like nothing to, and it's just like moving into that state of like just gratitude, doing what makes you happy, giving up the fight in a sense.
Oh my God. I've actually have a beautiful example of this too, with one of my clients that was just talking to her today. This has all happened within the course of like a month. And one of her goals, when we started working together, she had a bunch of debt she wanted to pay off. So she had like 6 figures of debt. She was like, I really want to pay this debt off. She has a good job. She's a freelancer in her industry, and she makes, decent money at it. And so we're like, okay, we're doing the thing for holding the intention. And I told her, I was like, I just want you to explore following what feels fun. Like what would feel joyful to create or do, and kind of get out of this like cycle of like, I have to do X, Y, and Z to make money for that, and just, do your job obviously, but like then explore otherwise. And so she came a couple of weeks ago and she was like, this is kind of nuts, but I was thinking about what you were saying. And I thought to myself, the time I remember being the most happy was when I was working this retail job at this like cute vintage store or whatever by my house. And now she makes way more than one would make at a retail job, right?
Sure.
Now, but she was like, I think I might just apply to work there one day on the weekend just because it made me so happy. I liked it so much.
What an interesting idea.
Wait. Gets even more, well, you're not going to be surprised because who you are, but gets even more magical. So then she goes onto the website and I'm like, yeah, you should do it. Why not? It'll make you happy. You'll make some friends. Who knows what could come out of it, right? Follow the fun. So she goes to apply on the website. And what does she notice when she goes to apply for the job? That they have a job at that store, that company, for exactly what she does currently as a freelancer, right? But for them, full-time in a new location that she actually would love to move to.
Wow.
And she's like, wow, like I literally would have never even thought, right, that this would even be possible. And so she applied for the job, and just Friday she was in like her round of final interviews for it. And it's just one of those beautiful, we were talking about it today, and I was like, it's just one of those instances where literally all you did was you were so open to something that seemed rather unconventional, that didn't make any logical sense for you to take this retail job when you have a 6-figure other job, right? But you were just following your heart and following your fun. And look, it led you to something that is so aligned and so in your path, and you didn't even realize that it was a potential, right?
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. It really is. It's that getting into, that's something that they, the ex-business partner said to me when we were talking to us. I just got in a state of so open and so grateful, and no longer needing to, chase or prove anything kind of, and it just like led to one thing to the next. And I was just grateful for the little things on the way, which turned into bigger things, And so it's such a powerful lesson to get.
Right. And it's so hard because so much of the thinking of the world wants us to like do the opposite. Wants us to be so in control of all of it. And
stack rank ourselves against everyone else and where they're at and where they should be. And, and these like crazy standards. And it's like it really is true. Comparing yourself to someone else is always comparing apples to oranges, because you're on your own unique trajectory. You're a unique emanation of source. And so, yes, we're all related. Yes, it's all connected. And it's also, you're unique, and you're on your own unique path, heading to, to a place that you cannot. I saw another Osho quote that makes me think of, and it was something to the effect of like, no need to run to the ocean. The river, all rivers ultimately lead to the ocean. Something along those lines, right? And so, that's the difference. Running frantically versus joyously skipping and taking in the scenery, right?
Absolutely. And also just thinking that we know what's best, right? We have the idea based on our previous experiences and our frame of references in our life of, what we think that ideal thing is, right? But if you had asked her like a week before that, she would have been like, no, I'm doing exactly she actually did say that when we first started. She was like, I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. It's great. Right. And it's like, there is something that's available. And same thing with me. I think that was one of the, I look back at that time, and I think one of the biggest blessings was my naivety, was the fact that I didn't know anybody that was a blog. I didn't know blogger was like a thing. I didn't know that like being a coach was a thing, I didn't know anything of these things were possible. I just kept on following the fun and kept on following what lit me up, which is such like this, kind of simple childish thing almost, right? To do, but then you look back and you're like, it's everything. So powerful.
I quote it almost every episode. Everyone knows what's coming who listens regularly. Is like the one Bible verse: "Lest you become like a child, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven." And it's like that's it. You said it. Like that childlike wonder, getting into that childish state, and allowing your inner child to lead in that way is so powerful.
Yeah.
So, eating with intention for you, I think this is something that Obviously we talked about inhaling your food like me is probably, let me rephrase that. As of this moment, I can rewrite it and I don't always do it. Now I'm at this point where sometimes I'll be really aware, like, consciously slow down. And then other times I'm like thinking about something else and it's like, oh, it's over. And so eating with intention and just being fully present, like with anything, makes so much sense. I'm curious your thoughts on the types of food you put in your body, because obviously, it's kind of one of those things like, there is an instance, I would say, where a Twinkie is good for you, and, just, understanding like that it's not always about health. Obviously you want that to be your primary thing, but I'm curious if, what your thoughts are, if you agree that there's a moment where like something that would be really unhealthy is, from one perspective, is actually really good for you.
Absolutely. I think it's all about the energy that you eat something with. So it's actually like it's funny, on the back of the book, the quote that they used was that, you can eat kale from a place of self-love, or you can eat kale from a place of self-hatred. Right. And I really believe that, because I spent many years like coming from that side of the spectrum where I was eating really healthy from a place of self-hatred. And I don't believe that that's healthy for you either. Right. I'd rather have someone eating that, whatever, your French fries from a place of, pure joy, than have someone eating the, green smoothie from a place of being like, well, I'm not good enough. So I need to have this to make me good enough. Right. Yep. So and this is like probably maybe not for your people actually, but for some people in the health world, this is too radical for them. I really believe that, food in general can be neutral, right? And we give the belief to everything that we put in our body, right? So if we have, so it works on, I think, two levels. One, there's the energy in which you're consuming with. Are you eating that Twinkie, like you said, or French fries, or whatever it is, right? Are you eating that thing that maybe is not the healthiest thing, but from a place of like pure joy and not trying to fill a void, but just like, celebration, enjoying yourself, being present to your life, and not making, your friend comes over with a pizza and you're not going to freak out about it. You're just going to eat it, and you're just enjoying your time with your friend. The way it digests and the way it moves through your body is so different. And anyone who wants to try this, try it at home if you want, at your own leisure. When you eat something from a place of being stressed out, almost regardless of what you're eating, that food's going to bother you, right? When you're eating something, and I would not recommend this at home, but I would just say, as someone who has some food allergies, there have been times where I've been in like really joyful celebratory circumstances and eaten something by accident that I was allergic to and had no reaction. Because my energy was in such, right? And I'm not recommending people do that. Don't,
right, sure.
At your own thing. But, I really think so much of it is energy. And so from a vibrational space, I think when we want to eat things that are, let's say, more higher vibrational foods, right? We eat things that are more connected to the earth. We want to eat the fruits and the vegetables, and we feel drawn to the fruits and vegetables at certain points, right? And we want to, I think when we're more in a space of self-love and honoring in general, we want to eat food that we feel honors our temple, right? The temple that we're residing in during this lifetime. So I think most of your choices end up in that category, but also then, you're living your life, and it's not the biggest deal if you eat whatever the donut or whatever it is, right? You enjoy it and you move on, and you eat healthy again tomorrow, and it is what it is, right? And then I also do think like a big thing is, like Bruce Lipton talks a lot about like the biology of belief, right? And the beliefs that you have around how certain foods are going to affect you play a massive part on how those foods affect you. So if you're going into the consciousness of being like, oh, I'm going to like I'm going to have a stomach ache if I eat these Brussels sprouts or whatever, then you likely will manifest a stomach ache, right?
Yeah.
Or, and so on some levels, you can also rig that in your favor. If you have certain foods, right? For instance, I really believe that if you have a certain belief that says, if I'm eating, let's just say smoothies for breakfast every day, then I'm going to feel my best and be radiant, then you will. Yep. Right. And so I think a great beginner place to start is to explore, where did you already have some beliefs about food and which ones you find helpful and which ones aren't so helpful. You can look into shifting and healing a little bit more.
Yeah, it's interesting how like these things that I've mentioned just happen across my feed, and then how it's always just such a setup with, moments before we were talking, we started recording, I talked to my brother, and I was trying to convince him to switch to, I have a friend who works for this company called Olipop. And do you know Olipop?
I'm familiar.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's, for those of you who don't know, it's like a healthy, sparkling kind of, prebiotics and fiber and they make like a healthy soda. And they have other flavors too, like orange cream and root beer, and my brother has increasingly started drinking Diet Coke in the last year or two. I mean, he's, it's not the first time he ever had it, but I think he was telling me that he, recently they've been drinking it more than ever, and I should really cool it, with that. And I was like, oh, try Olipop, and we had an event here at the Mystic Manor, and my friend came and he had a bunch of cases sent for our event. And then so I took some to him, and now he's you can have it like delivered on subscription, and he's having it. But just talking to him about it, he's telling me, oh yeah, I ordered it. It's good. It's not quite as good to me as Diet Coke, but maybe I'll get used to it. And then I was like, yeah, but the difference with what's in that versus battery acid, Diet Coke's like considered the most unhealthy thing on the planet. And he's like, oh yeah. And there's people like Warren Buffett or even Trump, I think, supposedly drink tons of it, and have no health issues. And it made me think of, and I wish my answer had been to him, because it's true. It's like the belief around it. It's like my dad. My dad is very different than my brother. My brother's kind of a hypochondriac. My dad is the exact opposite. It's like he's 76 years old. I've hardly ever seen him sick a day in his life. He's, has, a donut with every morning. It's like he doesn't think at all about what he eats. Zero his whole life. But he's got this very lighthearted, jovial, childlike, he really believes he's kind of untouchable in a certain regard. And so I think of him compared to my brother, who's more of like a hypochondriac type. And I'm like, yeah, my answer should have been to him, yeah, but you're not dad. Look at his energy and beliefs around these things and look at yours. He's very in the know of everything about health and, and so in medical stuff. And so, and has stomach issues, which, the Olipop has prebiotics in it. So it's supposed to be really good for digestive health. And so, yeah, that's really, it's an interesting case. And I just was having the conversation after I'm gonna come back with him when I see that conversation. Yeah, you need to keep having Olipop because you're not dad. Unless you turn into dad's attitude and outlook, you're cut off.
But it also goes to just show you too, like you get to a certain point where you can't unknow what you know. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, true for so many probably of the listeners and people in our generation. Right. It's like, I wish I could go back to some of the things that I used to not know.
Ignorance is bliss kind of thing.
I know too much. And, another, positive, you can pass this on maybe to your brother if he, would care about it. But things like that, I think, are really cool. Like the little switch off that you did. And there's something that like I really highly recommend is like, don't just like yank something out. Find something that, you still enjoy that brings, because it's food should be about enjoying, right? And something that helps like, fill that area of the thing that you want to start moving out. And then what happens is that when you make that choice, right? Like every time he's taking that Olipop instead of the Diet Coke, it's an act of self-love. It's a reminder that he loves himself. right?
Yep.
And he's going to do that loving thing for his body.
Yep.
And so in a really beautiful way, by doing these like little tweaks like that, by being like, oh, okay, instead of getting the, you know, croissant on the way, I'm going to make myself some Ezekiel toast before I leave the house, right? Like making these small little swaps. Now, every morning, not just because you're being healthier, but every morning you have that Ezekiel toast, you're also sending that message to your awareness that I
Yep.
love myself and I'm going to take care of myself and I'm important, and
Yep.
that's huge.
Huge. I would go so far as to say that's more important than, it's kind of like Bashar talks about, everything's like permission slips. Like, whatever you're doing is giving, even to create miracles and magic. It's like incredible healings. It's like, oh, these people have created a container where you're going to this person that you believe can heal you, and there's a story around it, and there's a, and it's like, I always say when we die, I think we're going to find out it's all placebo,
Yeah.
And so it's like, what is the story that you as this uber powerful creator being is telling, and then that we're collectively telling that then, so I think the where that leads me is I'm going to create a group where we do synchronized meditations to make like donuts the healthiest thing on the planet, or like that should be the next book.
Right.
That's really taking it to new ground.
Right. And then, it's funny because in so many ways, if you think about it, that's kind of what a lot of like homemade things do, right? Like if you think about that, like if your mom made chocolate chip cookies, right?
Yep.
And they're practically medicinal. They're your mom's chocolate chip cookies,
all
right?
the love in there, yeah.
Right. And it's so funny. It's like we have those. I think that's also like one of the reasons why I really fell in love with cooking and baking and tried to share that message of doing that, because I do that in a lot of ways with, when I make things, I make them healthier, obviously, but it's not just the fact that I'm making them healthier. It's the fact that I'm making them, with love, and that can shift so much. So gotta get a donut maker at home.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny because it kind of leads into your most recent book, Manifesting Through Meditation. So it's like, okay, let's manifest that the donuts are going to be healthy, and but seriously,
Yeah.
tell I of course, as my book is all about tapping into abundance in all its many forms, and manifesting is sort of the key buzzword, and a word that I think some people like. It's kind of like positive, people can get like triggery around, like. So I'd love to just hear from you. Obviously I haven't read the book. We figured that out at the very beginning, but tell me. I would love to, though, because I think I would love to see or hear from you now what it, sort of your take on manifestation, and how you came up with the meditations and things like that in the book.
Yeah. So that is essentially what you were just saying, right? It's like remembering that you are this all powerful creator of your reality. That's what manifesting is to me. And so, and manifesting is such this like triggery buzzword, which obviously my publisher just wanted. But I have nothing against it, because I think
I don't either.
It is, right? And I'm
like,
it is what it is. And when I think of manifesting starts at that root of remembering who you are, right? It's remembering that you are the divine designer, of this earth experience. And so that, was the purpose of the book. And in so many ways, so just like we were talking about with food, to me, that's like a journey of reclaiming your innate power. Right. And remembering who you are, and remembering that you are this, you are the infinite potential, that you are the creative essence, right? That everything originates from. And so we have, so that was the intention of the book, was not only to share this is like what manifesting is really about, is about remembering who you are, right? Which I also discovered from our interview that we're very much on the same page with that.
Yes, definitely.
And, you know, the thing that why I wanted to do the meditations is because as you guys now know from the story that I told, meditation, in my belief, is the foundation and is the key to remembering and to connecting and to getting back into that space where we stop identifying with our body and identifying with the truth of who we are. And what I've seen over the years, I've been in this industry now for 10 years, which feels hard to believe, but 10 years, and especially recently, like you were saying, manifesting is a super buzzy word. So I get a lot of people, you know, coming to me in different ways being like, I don't know how to manifest, manifesting doesn't work for me, or, you know, all the things. And what I find is that they're not meditating. And so they're trying to, you know, what the baker in me calls put pink icing on a mud cupcake and and wondering why it's not working, which is like slapping an affirmation on your limited self, right? And it's like, oh, I'm a body identifying, I'm identifying with my limited human and all my fears and all my limited beliefs, but I'm screaming at the wall 10 times a day, like I'm abundant and I am whatever. And I'm wondering why nothing's changing. And so I decided to do perhaps the less, you know, popular thing and be like the, you know, the grandmother that comes in the room and is like, I'm sorry, children, but you have to meditate.
Sit down and shut up.
Yes, exactly. And so I was like, all right, you guys, you want to know why it's not working? I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you in a book, and I'm going to give you 100 ways to make it work. And so that was my passion behind this book, was really bringing people back to what I believe is the source of it all, and finding, literally giving them 100 different ways to hopefully have something that, you know, tickles their fancy enough to really sit down and go in and, you know, enter into that space within them. And so I talk about, you know, the 4 like very basic steps for manifesting in the book. And the first one is remembering who you are. And I'm like, that's why we meditate. And so much, honestly, you can do so much with just that. You don't even need too much beyond that. I gave a couple more because I know people want more, but like, that's like such the crux in that moment. Why did I manifest so much? Like, you know, back in the day when all that was going on, it was because I was consistently meditating. And so I was consistently touching that space. I was consistently in that creative, infinite space within myself. And then naturally that bled over into how I was showing up in my life and in the world and the actions I was taking. And things started moving and coming in just from that. And then I go through, you know, getting really clear on what your desires are from a soul-centered place, and not being so informed by, well, what's everybody else, like kind of what you were talking about before. We're all on our own unique path. So the answer is not out there. And, you know, it's inside. Right. And so what your next step is, what's right for you, just because, you know, Molly's getting married and Jeff got a promotion, or so-and-so is traveling to India, like, it doesn't mean that any of it's right for you. Maybe this is like, you're supposed to learn how to like stay home and cook right now, you know?
Right.
Like, it's like tuning into that space inside your soul that I really believe has your own like divine roadmap on it.
Right.
And that's the second step, because half the time you're manifesting something that your soul doesn't even really want. You just saw it on Instagram. And and then the third step that I talk about in the book is, you know, clearing those fears and the beliefs and the wounds and kind of all the things that get in the way of us remembering more that we are divinely designed and we are worthy of all of those things we desire. And then the fourth step in the book is quantum embodiment, which is when we step into the person that we would be when we receive those things anyway, because that's what we ultimately are journeying towards is the us that we become when we think we're going to become when we get that thing that we want, because we just get to become that now and then watch, how everything else rearranges for us, and things do end up manifesting and synchronicities happen, and we're so divinely connected and supported. So there's 100 different meditations. I channeled, the whole book was channeled really fast, actually. It just kind of flood.
It's like a channeling, full like dramatic channeling experience kind of thing, like where you have a particular guide that comes through, or you're just using that word.
No, I don't have a particular guide that comes through. I just connect to my supports, my divine squad. And then I consider channeling as when I'm like receiving downloads that I'm not consciously thinking of.
Cool. Yeah. 100 guided practices. I mean, that's a lot of practices. And
yeah, I'm so glad I didn't have to think about it with my conscious mind.
Wow. That's I definitely want to check it out. So have you went through and done each one? They like coming through, they were coming through. It's kind of like, oh, here's an idea. Okay. And then you went back and did it as opposed to doing it. And then, cool.
Yeah. They were, the whole, like, doing the book itself was like its own like beautiful initiation for me in so many ways. And yeah, each one of them is, it goes through the first 4D ones are through those 4 steps. So it's like 10 different ones that help you connect to that divine essence, even though really all 100 will, but those are the ones that are really focused on that. And then, they're focused on the different steps, and then it's like all these different areas. So the process was really like, I came up with this structure for it that I thought was good, and like different things you want to hit. And then when I was sitting down to write, it just flew through these meditations. And so many of them, it was super fun for me to go and do it. And I had a lot of big things transpire and shift for me while I was doing the book. Yeah. So they're really fun. And part of the reason why I was, excited to provide that many different ones is because my hope is that, I think everyone's going to have different ones that pop out at them, and different ones that they really like groove with and love, so that there's like enough of a variety that if, there's like 10 different ones, kind of what you were saying, all rivers lead you to the same ocean, right? I wanted to provide as many rivers as possible so that whichever one looked appealing, they would take.
Yeah. And that was, it's funny because Osho's just come up a bunch, and that was because that quote was him, and the food quote was him, and he did a book called The Book of Secrets. I had it. I think I had it at one point. Now it makes me think I haven't seen it in a long time. It's huge, and it's based off of like these Vedic, writings, ancient Vedic writings, where it's all different meditation techniques to connect with source. And like, there's like, I forget how many in it. There's a bunch. And it's like one of these will be, or some of these will be perfect for you. So it's the same kind of thing,
We're still on the same.
Yeah. Your Osho reincarnated. Oh, that's who you're channeling. Got it.
Maybe that's no channel.
Okay.
I'll take it.
That's funny.
No, but I do think that's really important. And I think, I think that's one of the things, I guess, how I look at some of the ways I teach, right, is I try to look at what are the places where people get lost, right? Where the places where people they stop, right? And there's I've had, obviously, just being in the world and having people talk to me about stuff. It's like, there are some things that are so like, either you do this way or that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if that person just doesn't happen to jive with that specific like school of meditation, then all of a sudden they're like, Well, who said that there's not one way? I mean, there's a
Right.
bajillion more than the 100 I wrote. There's so many different ways that we can connect to that divine essence. You could just go outside and, sit on the grass and do it. You don't need, that.
Right.
But the more roadmaps and the more ways we can offer these facilitations, I think, of that experience, the better, because then the more people we can get to have that experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'd like to switch gears for a moment and go into story time. I love to
Okay.
get a good story of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story. And I got to imagine you have something or many up your sleeve.
I do. I have a bunch. But it's funny. This just happened just recently. Well, I won't tell you, I guess. Yeah, I'll tell you the story so I don't ruin it.
Yeah, don't
But
ruin the story.
I won't ruin the story before I begin the story. So we're looking for houses, and we've been looking for like a year and a half. And I knew that it wasn't happening because like my energy wasn't there yet. It just wasn't like ready to click in. And so we end up finding this one house, and literally first house in like obviously a year and a half, and all of a sudden it's like boom, 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 energy's like clicking in, and I'm like, whoa, like I could see myself living here. Like got really, really excited. We put an offer in on it. I'm like, sending it out to all my friends. I'm like imagining like the Christmas decorations, like I'm there. And we put in the highest bid. We like, what do we need to do to get this done? Like we're doing it. We do all the right things. And it turns out one of the other people offered to pay that sum in cash. Right? Very large sum.
Yep.
Hey, this person's going to come up with a suitcase of cash or whatever, however that works. Yep. Right. So I was like, okay. And one of the things I always say is that when it doesn't feel logical, like when things like that happen, it's like just divine protection, right? Like it was just removed. That wasn't the right one. Obviously I was still upset because I'm a human, and you got excited about it. But I was excited because I knew that the energy had opened up for the house. Like it was like, okay, that for sure just happened. Right.
Yeah.
And so I told our real estate guy, so sweet, he's like sending me all these like houses, like right after we get rejected. And I was like, I know you mean well, but like, it's too soon after the breakup for me to date again. I just need some space. So I took some space for, like a week, or I was like, at least a week, nothing. And I was just meditating. And every time I was meditating, I kept on seeing this vision of me walking to this really cute cafe that was about 15 minutes from our apartment in this like more like cute hip part of town that has vegan pastries, which is why I like it. And so I just love this really cute cafe. It's really adorable. And I kept on seeing it. And
is it native foods?
No, I do love native foods. No, it's Coffee Dose. Do you know Coffee Dose?
I
don't know. It's
because you're in Orange County, right?
Yeah.
I remembered that. So I'm like, vegan cupcakes, native foods, hip part of town. Like I think I never.
By like 17th Street area.
Right where I used to live. Right where I used to live off 17th.
So anyway, I keep on seeing this, and I'm like seeing myself going there and like working there. And this is a place that occasionally I will drive to and go, right? But it's not convenient at all. And anyway, I don't think anything of it. And I'm like, you know what? I think it'd be really nice, if wherever we end up living, I hope we just live close enough to like me to be able to walk to a cute place like this. Right.
Right.
And so finally my partner and the real estate guy dragged me to see this house. They're like, please, like it was a weekend. Like we just like, you gotta like break the seal. You just gotta go back. It's going to be fine. Right. So we look at this house. It's way above our budget, right? So I'm like, oh great, I'm just not getting emotionally attached at all. This is like a ridiculous venture. And, and we go into it, and of course it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. So I keep my promise. I'm like, I'm not going to get emotionally attached because this is a ridiculous venture. And And then we walk outside and like my fiance is like, that's really beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, it's really beautiful. It's out of our budget. Okay. And he's like, can we talk about it? So I'm like, let me look up a coffee shop and see if we can go sit at a coffee shop and talk about it. So we're not in front of the house. And what's 2 blocks away from this house, but the coffee shop that I kept on seeing in my meditation.
In your vision. Wow.
Yeah. So we walked to the coffee shop, we get our coffees, and the real estate guy is like, listen, I just heard that they bought their next house already, right? They just bought the next house. So I say, why don't we just go in with like what we want, like a lower offer that we want to pay, and like Hail Mary it. I was like, we literally just lost like a top offer, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, fine, do it. Fine. Okay, we'll do it. And as we make this decision, a little butterfly comes swirling around us, which I always associate with my grandmother. And I'm like, oh, grandma's giving her blessing. So, okay, we can put the bid in. Right. Yeah. And so we not only got this house, but we got it for significantly less than it was asked for. And when I was talking to the real estate broker for them afterwards, she was like, I wrote a letter and I sent pictures of us, explaining, who we are and why we like the house and why it was special. And she was like, I've never, like, I read your letter and like, it really made a difference for the buyer, because they
for the seller.
For the seller, that's what I mean. For the seller.
For the buyer too.
Obviously for us, right? It really worked out for us. But she was like, yeah, something about it. Like they really connected to you and the fact that you guys would be living there and, and that made them feel better about giving it for less money than they had originally put on the market for. So that's my little synchronicity story.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. It's such a good story. And it's such a great lesson. It's such a great lesson too. It's like this, it's always this or something better. And then you went the extra mile, with that. I mean, think that letter, knowing Orange County, that letter probably saved you 6 figures, and that's
multiple 6 figures.
Yeah. So the fact that, I mean, that was a well-written letter, right? And it wasn't contrived. It was authentic, And so, yeah, that's pretty incredible. Love that story.
Yeah. I it's also, I think it is, like you said, it's a really good reminder of this or something better. Right. And how sometimes I'm always saying that. And then it's like, you're in that space and it's so beautiful to be reminded of it, being like, when you're making that bid on that first house, I really thought this was like it. Right. And the divine had like a way better plan than I even thought was possible, because knowing Orange County, I knew that I didn't think budget wise we were going to be able to afford the area that I really liked, for the size of house we really wanted, and there's like this, it's always working out better than you even think it is. Just get out of the way.
Remember, it's all make believe. It's all funny money. It's all make believe.
Right.
This or something better. Like if you loved what you saw before, get excited about what's to come next. And I expect to be invited over for vegan cupcakes next time I come to visit my parents, because I'm there quite regularly.
Literally whenever, let me know.
They got only for homemade scratch cupcakes though.
Okay.
There's been too much vegan cupcake talk, So I'm a very picky guest.
It's only fair. It's only fair.
Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for taking the time to connect and share. And you're such an inspiration. And I would, if you would, please take a moment and tell everyone best way to find you and connect and all those things.
Yeah. Yes. You can find me on Instagram at Cassandra Bodzak, all of the social medias rather at Cassandra Bodzak. My website, CassandraBodzak.com. I'm sure it'll be listed somewhere. You can look at the spelling of my name in the podcast title. And you can find Eat with Intention or Manifesting Through Meditation wherever books are sold: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, wherever you like to buy books. If you guys are interested in diving deeper, if you were interested in some of the things that I chatted about, I want to let you know that we have a Divinely Design Your Life 101 masterclass that's totally free for you guys. We'll put a link below and you can check that out. And I kind of go into, I very briefly hit on those like 4 steps, of manifesting in the class. I go deeper into that. And we also do some meditating and we do some energy clearing exercises as well. So it's a super fun date night with yourself, especially as we, move towards the new year, of course.
Love that. And I know that the listeners appreciate it. And there will certainly be some people who will take you up on that offer. So thank you for putting it out there. And like I said, doing what you do, you're such an inspiration. I do have one final question for you, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Cassandra Bodzak?
To have fun, to enjoy it. That's
perfect. Perfect. I'm in. Cassandra, thank you again. And all of you out there for tuning your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts. Until next time, journey well. Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can find the book and unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.